You are listening to Inspired Caring with Michelle Magner, episode number 167. All right, y'all. Welcome back to the podcast. If you are new with us, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. If you are a regular listener, you will realize that there is no intro and there is no music right now. I am having a little hiccup on the back end of my recording platform. So I'm working on that behind the scenes, but I do not want to wait to post these upcoming episodes. They are so good. So, okay, here we go. So I am recording early in the morning in my robe. I have never recorded on this new platform. So I am looking at myself in the camera, the video. I don't even know if this video will end up anywhere, but anyway. So today's episode, I wanted to talk about delivering bad or sad news. And I've probably overthought this, but I feel like we have had just our lion's share of bad news to deliver to our children, to family and friends. So I don't know. After this last round, I was just thinking about, are there any strategies or things specifically that I've thought of as with each bit of bad news we have considered as we're sharing it. So I've put together some notes. I have them in front of me. And I just thought I will go through this. Sorry, it's a little choppy at the beginning here. It's a new format for recording. And so I'm a little caught off guard. Let me get a little sip of coffee. And then we will dive in. So over the years, we've had to share about diagnoses, dementia, death, divorces. And this most recent round of bad news was really hard because our girls were out of town. So it just got me thinking about all of this, and probably have overthought this as an empath would, but I also do think it's reasonable to put a little bit of thought into how we're sharing information with people, because there is a ripple effect, there is an impact, and there's an energy to all of this. So I will continue to elaborate on each of those points. And I will say, I myself have had trauma with how news has been shared to me, a little bit of PTSD. Like, I remember being 6 years old. This is as I remember it, okay? I'm 52 right now, but as I remember it, as a 6-year-old, and my parents sitting my little baby sister, who was probably 3 at the time, and I down. And I remember them saying, we're getting divorced. And I have a very distinct memory of thinking, and then saying out loud, we're not a family anymore. And I have other bits of information that have been, or news that's been shared with me, that I just loop on it. I like grab on to some of the language that was used and loop on it. And not to say that my parents deliver that information poorly, or, I just remember sitting down in the living room and everything was very calm and quiet. But it's still hard. It's still hard at every age. So that's one of the reasons why I've put some thought into this, just about how we're sharing bad news. And prefacing with, you are a grown-ass adult. You get to do whatever you want. You get to deliver information how you want. This is not to tell you what to do. It's just simply, sometimes there is no good time or good way to share information. It's just sad, bad, horrible news, and it has to get out there and be shared. So maybe there's nothing to take into consideration. Sometimes it just is flung out there regardless of collateral damage. But anyway, I'm going to just share a little bit more about our most recent situation, which was that our dog died. Our sweet little brown Sunny girl, her name was Sunny, passed away She was 12 and a half. She still occasionally had some bursts of puppy energy, but she looked good. She was happy. She was doing her thing. We had slowed down on our walks. If you follow me on Facebook, if we're connected there, you know that I do a lot of Facebooks while I'm walking. And so, or Facebook Lives. We had slowed down on her going out and walking with me because she wasn't able to do it anymore. So her health was declining. Like, we knew that something was going on. She had started having some seizures. So we kept saying that she was on hospice. And I think because we've had so many family members who have participated in that incredible, incredible service, it just was a way for us to make sense to ourselves that we were nearing her end of life. And it was kind of a jokey thing to say she was on hospice, but I had taken her to the vet on a Tuesday, and then she died on Thursday, relatively unexpectedly. We thought we were going to be in it for a little bit of a duration of managing chronic illness, but that did not happen. Two of our daughters were out of town. One is currently a camp counselor at a summer camp. So how we shared this information, we just knew it was going to have a pretty big impact on her because she was with her kids that day. And then our other daughter, she was the one who had, as we were walking through the rescue place, when she was like in 4th grade, she was the one who was like, hey, how about this dog? And then came up with the name Sunny. Everyone agreed anyway. So I don't know. It just, obviously this is their childhood dog. So it felt like a really big deal. So it was really hard to deliver that news by phone to them. We did not want to send a text. So again, this is where some of the thought processes that I've had around this have come into play. So methods of communication. That's the first thing that really came to my mind is, how is this information being shared? Are you calling someone? Do you need to deliver the news in person? Is it something that can be sent via text? Is it something to be shared via social media? Each of these ways that we communicate have different tones. So just thinking through, like, who gets what form of communication, because each of these also takes energy for you as well. So the tone of each of these was something that I have thought of over time, and how fast that information needs to be communicated and how wide it needs to be communicated is also up to you. So just, a group text thread is going to be different than sending an individual text. So it's at your discretion, and you get to decide who needs to hear your voice and what methods that you're using. But just keeping in mind that each form of communication does have its own energy and tone. So texting, if I am texting someone bad news, I do think about the time of day that I am sending that text. I wake up very early, as many of you know. And so the idea that I'm sending like a bad news bomb at 5 a.m. and then someone that I care about, we have each other's numbers, someone that I care about is going to be waking up, making their coffee, sitting down with their phone and going through their texts at the beginning of their day. Like, is that something I want them to read at the beginning of their day? They're picking up their phone, kind of going through their text for the morning. Or I think about all the places where I read texts. I'm at my desk, I'm in the grocery store, I'm at a stoplight in a car. So I'm just thinking about that delivery of information. Do I want someone to receive that information in that way and in one of those places? So social media is, we're learning. This is a great social experiment, but we are learning more and more about it. It is an emotional minefield to go on social media every day. I would say especially Facebook. That's one of the primary platforms I use, Facebook, Instagram. I'm a little more on TikTok. LinkedIn, but Facebook to me is an emotional minefield. So sometimes I'm actually able to get centered before I even open that app, because what am I looking for when I am going on Facebook? Am I looking for an endorphin boost? Because there's a chance I'm going to get some cortisol while I'm out there. I am 100% certain that our brains are not designed to process the information that we're getting off of social media as quickly as it comes to us. There are chemical reactions that are happening within our body when information is communicated, shared, when thoughts are happening. So I just don't think we're designed to process that way. You're scrolling social media and someone's on their vacation of a lifetime, and then you see someone's grandma passed away, and then someone just had a wedding, and then someone's kid is sick, and then someone else's dog has passed away. Like, it's just so much. So I was hesitant about how I wanted to share. I am hesitant about how I want to share bad news through social. So you're showing up in someone else's feed. It's also important to remember that in real life, not everybody is seeing everything you're putting on social media. So to give people grace if you're seeing them for the first time and they did not see your latest share. One of the things about social media is also managing other people's reactions and responses to your news. And that can feel really overwhelming. When our daughter was in high school, one of our daughters was in high school, she was hospitalized for 8 days at the Children's Hospital as they were trying to figure out what was happening, what was going on, manage pain. And I do believe in the power of prayer, and I needed a prayer squad. So it was an intentional decision to put the information out there, to also let people know in a big way, like our family was going through something really significant. Once the information was out there, I then felt like I had to manage something, like I owed people a response. And there are other great platforms to share information and keep people up to date on it. Or maybe you start your own Facebook page just specifically for that. But it just was a lot. Once we opened up that can of worms with social media, it felt like a lot for us to manage. So with our dog, again, using social media, like, how do I want to use social media? I had done so many Facebook Lives walking my dogs. And so I did just like a small little copy caption for the video and shared it through Facebook Lives because that felt aligned and authentic to me. And then people could choose based on the caption I had shared if they wanted to engage with the video or not. I think I put like tough day in the Magner house, or today is a real toughie, something like that. Okay, so we talked about different ways we're communicating, intentions on communicating sad or bad news. I have tried to be more thoughtful around my intentions. Who actually needs to know this? Am I sharing it just to put it out there? I mean, people need to know what's happening in each other's lives. Am I interested in just having community around me and letting people know that I'm struggling or suffering? Do I want to let people know what's happening to excuse my poor behavior? Maybe I've become a little more flaky, maybe a little more withdrawn. Is that why I am sharing? Do I want to perpetuate that shock value on Facebook to just like dump my sad news out there? And I mean, that's a hard one for me to wrap my head around, but like, why? Why am I sharing this information in this way? And what kind of reaction am I looking for? Actually, I've realized over time, I don't like people to feel sorry for me. I mean, I don't want pity, certainly. Sometimes I do really need sympathy or empathy. But But I've just been thinking about that intentional messaging, the intentions, like why am I, what kind of reaction or response am I looking for? Why am I sharing this? And I think that one of the harshest things about being human is that while our world is maybe crumbling, the world keeps spinning. Like things keep going. So when I'm at the grocery store checking out, and this teenage person who's ringing me up asks me, oh, how's your day going? Like, is it worth me dropping a sad bomb that my dog just died on this kid? No. Personally, I think the answer is no. But again, it goes back to, have I just been a crab ass? And so the reason I'm sharing it is so that they're like, oh, well, that makes sense. She's just not a complete bitch. She's just grieving. I know it's totally overthinking it. But again, like, who needs to know this information and what are the intentions? Because we have used how are you as a pretty generic conversation starter in our culture. So I don't think the person helping me at Starbucks necessarily needs to know that, what's going on really in my life. So timing. So far we have talked about methods of communication. We've talked about intentions behind the communication, timing. This round of sharing that Sunny, our doggie, had died, I needed a minute to catch my breath. Like, I just needed to be in our little family bubble and be absorbing this before I opened it up to share with others, because it just feels like a very transitional chapter change in our life, having the kid's childhood doggie pass away. So I needed a minute to catch my breath. And I honestly held back with some of my friends that the dog had died until the afternoon a couple days later, because she had passed away Thursday night, really, really late. And so Friday morning, I don't know, like I said about the texting, like I didn't want my friends to wake up to this really sad text. A bunch of them had just spent a week funneling through my house to take care of her while we were on vacation, both of our dogs while we were on vacation. So I just didn't feel ready. So that's part of it. On timing is like, when do you feel ready? When do you feel ready to share that sad or bad news? If I had needed a friend, I would have shared it. Absolutely. I would have shared, called or texted people. And I think for me, what I needed was just a minute to process. Like, I spent all of Friday just wandering around my house, crying, sobbing. As I mentioned, both our daughters were out of town. And so one of our daughters was at her boyfriend's family home. And so I knew she was going to be really devastated, obviously. And I was glad that she had some support around her. And then our other daughter is a counselor at summer camp. And so it was just literally ripping a Band-Aid off. Like, there was no good timing. I couldn't keep it from her. Like, we could not withhold that information, because she's the type of person that would ask, when did this happen? How long have you known? And just before we took Sunny to the vet, I just wanted to make sure the girls had that news. So yeah, the timing, it just was really, really tough. When my mother-in-law passed away, she lived in an assisted living memory care, incredible team at that building. And they just had loved her so hard. They loved her so much. And, it was my husband and my brother-in-law and I were in the room with her when she passed away, and she had been receiving hospice care for some time. And so, like, she let out her last breath, and I just had this moment, like, we have to let the team know. And my husband said, I just need a minute, so just hang on. So we just sat there together in the room with her, just like stroking her hair and holding her hand. And yeah, we just needed a minute to catch our breath, and then immediately called family members to let them know and brought the team in to share with them that Sherry had passed. So again, the timing, it's what do you need to do to be able to gather your thoughts and share the information. Sometimes there's maybe you need more information. There's a bad news or of what's about to happen or something's happening, but maybe you need more test results or a next step, or you know that how people are going to respond in general. So you're wanting to figure out like what else would they need to know before you share that news. So that's just something else that was on my mind. But this is your news to share, so you get to decide on the timing. I would say impact is the next thing that has really come to my mind. There is collateral damage around sharing bad news with how other people are going to respond or receive the information. And it's really not our problem or business. We don't get to decide how other people process. But if there is going to be a backlash or whiplash or something that, is going to come back towards you when you share that information out, I believe there is value in considering the impact of sharing the news. So when my grandma Masters was nearing her end of life, my husband and I had planned a trip to Europe. It was our 1-year wedding anniversary, and we knew, which was May 27th. And so we knew we were going to be out of town for a couple of weeks. And she had gotten to the point where she just wasn't eating as much and she was sleeping more. And so someone asked me, like, if she dies while you're on vacation, do you want to know? Well, depending on who you are and your relationship to the people that are involved and what you would, what you're doing, I don't know what that answer would be for you. For me, in that moment, at that time, I was her power of attorney. I had been her primary family caregiver. The answer was yes, absolutely. It would not, for that situation, have cut the trip short. Because we had our next steps already lined out. But just thinking about if you are in this space with other family members, and you have a trip coming up or something going on, do you want that information communicated to you while you're out of town? She'd passed away on Cinco de Mayo. So ultimately in that situation, we got to be with her in those final days. And gosh, it was just such a gift, such a blessing. But I did tell the staff, of course, I do want the call just immediately, as soon as possible. So what would you want? And if you were on a care team with other family members, what do they want to have happen if there's a trip coming up and something may go down? Because people can always reach out to you for updates, right? That's always an option too. But the impact, how will someone respond? What stuff has been shared with them in the past, and how have they responded to things in the past? Now, people grow and we change and evolve and that sort of thing. You certainly, again, are not responsible for how they respond, but is this a situation where you're going to have to manage it? It's just something to be thoughtful of. And then beyond impact, there's just an energy of bad news. Researchers have discovered that negativity is as contagious as secondhand smoke. Like the energy of negativity and actually the energy of positivity is also very impactful. Obviously, we've seen videos of people on subways and someone is like smiling and dancing or laughing, and then the people systematically around them start doing the same thing. So the energy of bad news is significant. And so what is that going to look and be like, and how do you want to participate in the energy of that? Humans are designed to be in community. We are designed to do life together. We absolutely are not meant to be in isolation. We are not meant to hold things in. This is your brain. This is how you process your emotional well-being, your mental health. And so we're not meant to keep experiences bottled up and not share the information with people. We need to lean on each other and count on each other and depend on each other and share with each other and do life together. That is how we are designed. So often there is an outpouring of love and support when bad or sad news is shared. And that can also feel overwhelming at times too, right? So just thinking through these things, and knowing that people will ask you, what do you need? How can I help? And so depending on where you are on the path of whatever the situation is in that moment, the answer may be nothing right now. I'll let you know. But then also just having a few things in mind, again, depending on where you are and what the situation is, to share with people, like looking at your calendar, what's coming up, what could you have help with, what needs to be canceled. When Sherry, my mother-in-law, passed away, and I shared the information via text with my friend group, they asked me, what do you need? And baked goods. That's what came to mind. I need baked goods. And over the weekend, we had so many cookies and cakes and sweet treats dropped off on our porch. And it was just really beautiful and special. So that is just where I'm at with thinking through what and when and how to share sad or bad news. Unfortunately, the older we get, it just feels like the more there is of this. And life is 50-50, just keeping that in mind. Like, we are resilient as human beings and persistent, and goodness is coming. So even if you are in a tough season right now or a tough chapter, you will get to the other side. The edges will soften. Goodness is coming. I continue just to look for the joy, the happiness, the sweetness of life in each moment. And those are to be celebrated and shared too. So I love you. I see you. And I'm here for you. I'll talk to you soon.